nhớ trong一种不一嘛，就做人是对的那个也好那个，首先到东京那个时候是叫呢，如果领导那呀，如果领导北下掉 Halloween 我也 Horror Fest 北有了别个的呢，贴些上菜我给了谁都是的东东，如那个有了么，而且的能路给了谁做我给了谁都北。他头上呢，个有一下我撒多的一头vinho多，我就我个成撒上了多的个海条，然后哦，个有一下我个都真个都别的工农。Galinda của chờ ni số lần số tụ là còn kế là rèn đó cũ. Mlong ta này kế chỉ sáng chân chỉ sáng trái mình trang trương rạp liền nhắm bố mình và mình kế nó mò. My husband and I were born and raised in California, but we decided to make a move to Minnesota to live with my birth mother. My husband and I are also first-time parents to a young daughter. Although I married outside my Hmong race, I still am aware of my cultural beliefs, and my husband also tries to understand my culture and beliefs as well. I believe that I am not gifted, but I do have a sharp intuition with things, and I keep an eye out regarding my husband and daughter. During our move, we drove across the country, and the first night was spent in Nevada at an aunt's house where it was quite peaceful. Although there were certain memories that are blurred, the ones I do remember are the ones we spent in hotels in Idaho and Wyoming, and one night at a campground. In Wyoming, the hotel we were at was really old and had this very long, creepy hallway down to the elevators. I had this really eerie feeling like something was off. The campground we spent at was in Yellowstone National Park, and my daughter slept well, even though I heard some noises. The exhaustion in me just shrugged it off. Around 3 in the morning was when we finally reached our destination in Minnesota, and my mother's house came into view. My mom lives in this two-story home with a basement, which was something we Californians did not have. However, the moment we moved in, I immediately saw what looked like a little girl running across from our bedroom door, and my inner instinct told me that it was probably the house spirits, and that we were newcomers, so it was making itself known to me. But 2 weeks after moving in, my daughter began crying nonstop. At first, I thought it was just an adjustment for her, but she refused my arms and wanted only my husband. Many people were telling me that, oh, she's probably just confused and adjusting to new atmosphere and told me not to worry. But as few more weeks passed, she remained the same. I stayed up with my daughter from midnight until 5 in the morning, making me just lose so much sleep. My mother gave me one of those little red triangle protection bags, and it did absolutely nothing. My husband and I began to argue more than ever around this time. I began to experience many strange things, like when I would shower, I would feel something poke me at the right side of my hip, but I just shrugged it off. My paternal grandfather passed away, and in August was the funeral for him, which was held in California. Although my husband and I were still not on good terms with each other, we went, and I was excited to see my siblings in the West Coast. During the funeral, my daughter began to cry and became very fussy, which I was used to because of the way she had been for the past few weeks. I was running on no sleep, and when my daughter tripped and fell, I got even more stressed. When we returned home to rest, I asked my stepmother, who I'm very close with, to please call her soul spirit since she did fall at the funeral home. She mentioned that she would have her father do it since he was more experienced with it. That night, my daughter cried as she usually did, and she cried as if she was afraid of something. I texted my stepmother and told her what was going on because she was so scared we slept with the lights on. My stepmother knew already that my husband and I weren't on agreeing terms, so she rushed home, and when she spoke my name, I woke up from my sleep. She asked me how my daughter was doing since we moved to Minnesota, and I told her what had been happening. She expressed her concerns, and she told me that she knew something was wrong. Earlier, when she dropped us off at home, the porch lights were flickering, as if something was trying to get in uninvited. My stepmother cleansed her house with sage, and it finally calmed my daughter down. She tied a red string on all three of us before our flight home, and she mentioned about how because I was married and not under the protection of my birth mother's house ancestors, I had to move out on my own. And when we finally returned to Minnesota, things were calm for a few weeks, and my daughter returned to her normal self. But that was when whatever was spiritually bothering her latched onto me. It made me emotionally stressed, and I found sleep to be a problem. I would find that I didn't sleep until the morning hours after my husband left for work, which was around 5 in the morning. On this particular morning, I was sleeping with my baby's crib next to mine, and I had this dream where you are dreaming, but you're also within a dream. I saw that there was something sleeping in between me and my daughter, and the eerie feeling rose in me. Whatever was sleeping in between me and my daughter reached out and grabbed my right arm, and I saw that the hand turned from brown to white to an old woman's hand. I thought it was my paternal grandfather visiting me, but I knew that he wouldn't scare me like that. So in my mind, I believed that it was an old woman who was trying to scare me. When I woke up, I was shaking and tried not to cry as I'm not as brave as I used to be. And I kept my emotions in as much as I could because I had been told that crying was a sign of weakness and it allowed the entity to bother me more. I was so scared and upset that I called both my husband and mother. My mother told my 15-year-old brother to stay in the room with me, but I couldn't stay in that house after that, so I called an aunt to pick me up. I told this to my stepmother, and she was upset, and she reminded me again that my mother and stepfather's house did not offer me protection because I was married. But my birth mother and stepfather's mother kept telling me that I was just stressed, making me almost go crazy with my own thoughts. I told my husband that no one was listening to me and that I wanted to move out. And so we moved to an apartment. My paternal grandmother gave me a charm to wear, and it's been keeping me sane for the time being. The last time that I saw her, she told me that my paternal grandfather came to her in a dream and was telling her that he was upset about me moving away to Minnesota. He felt like I tossed away my father and that I didn't love him as I went to go live with my birth mother. He did come to visit me a few times to bother me for this very reason. But honestly, deep down, I don't even know if it's really my grandfather or not. I shared with my stepmother about my paternal grandmother's dream, and she agreed that a few people weren't happy that we decided to move to the Midwest. But the charm I have been wearing has kept me brave, and I did remove it one night, and I experienced being sat on. I told whatever it was to get off of me. I'm hoping for new beginnings. I was never told that even if my husband is not Hmong, I could follow his ways of belief. So now I am turning to church, and hopefully I can find some peace. And perhaps I might keep you updated on what goes on with me after this. 我找到边角我个城沙站那多的古到么海都被是的到唔弄天啊到公给了谁 giờ thì giờ tận đây nó có họ update của nó là của và thế kia sẽ hạt tiền có họ update cái giờ họ rong xin mà ra tận đây nó giờ ít ra và của tôi xin cờ mất biết cũng lắm anh nó của giờ là thà đó nè ok là gì nông ta này cái chỉ sai kinh chỉ san trái mà. My pa was someone who lived to an old age, and she was always someone who knew a lot of stories to share. One of them was about her grandpa, who happened to meet a Pinot Vai one evening when he came back from the garden. I remembered one evening I asked her to tell me the story, and she said to me, La khớ của lúc đó của mà lý bia đó không lòng. So I went to scratch her back, and she began her story. Bùa thấu, mua tu sĩ tu nhóm lọ tê, gỡ mua tê lọ. Gỡ lọ cho bể lúc chơi tê ở nhà, giờ chỉ lấy bỏ hố rù rù. Chỗ lọ lọ, ta rò, tu trồng tì, rong chỗ lấy chỗ đa chỗ đu lọ. Xó sự tôn trọn trồng sồn tu kể tu lăng xì hai tìa mi tu. Tê rò mà nó ư giờ tao một bữa ta chơi tê. Tu giờ tê à tìa gì, trong này nó kê ư bữa tê kì ư mà lên sơ kê mua. cái là tới tàu lúc họ chú kia là lư nà xó nà cho mà yên chuyện chia li hai dạng rõ tổ sư cái là những nhóm ít leo chẳng cái chuyện nói trong gọi lý lăng tư có khó lúc tao chế tọa cái tụ chỉ sợ hai tia mi tụ có sự một sau sẽ là lăng tư họ tụ lăng tư một sau chả bởi tụ tháo lò bla hồ đắp bò nãy chỉ có nhiều đúng giá nửa lúc họ mua mà chụp lợi nửa sợ luôn chi cái nửa hai tia tụ là này bao cả cụ là nhóm họ đang có nào tụ lăng chi sẽ té tia lo tao cơ mà tụ tháo lỏng loạn đó sợ là rậu tận tụ chú chèn thá tệ lần rậu tờ nửa chia tụ lăng chi ta cái nửa chia tụ lăng tú cái nửa sợ nông hai tia nhỏ cán tụ nó nên trái đã chỉ sự tụ lăng chi sai tụ tháo lỏng loạn đó mà ở lúc họ mua mà yên kia yên thế này giờ cũng nhà mà yên đỡ bò sẽ kệ tụ lăng chi sẽ té hai tia nhỏ lú cán tụ nó ước chuyện trái đã chỉ ước trái tụ sư ấy con ấy có hắn trái đã chỉ cái tụ tháo lỏng nó sẽ té hai tia nhỏ cán tụ nó cú là cung trái tụ ý giả thế sư sau dẫn thấy ít số cái tụ tháo lỏng loạn là giờ cái đi sợ trần cái nữa hai tia ở chỗ này kia cú là sao nè cú yêu mua là trả cho cuốn tụ lăng chi sẽ té hai tia sáng mà mua mà đỡ nhỏ có căn tụ cho tụ tháo lỏng loạn là dẫn chi con nhà đông cái gì nữa sẽ té hai tia sao sao ít bền là sư đủ tự do cả nếu hai linh nó ta sẽ cái nữa sẽ cái đi tự mua là tụ lăng chi yên sáng trong tụ tháo lỏng loạn là mua cái yên la thọc là đại té mua đồ tọt công hai rong cái thằng nó plan tại đó tọt công hai rong cái luôn tụ sẽ cái đi can đi cho đa sao tụ lăng tụ sẽ nói tia gì bây giờ dùng một số ta bộ lên này yêu đi trả tiền tụ lăng chi thế lại thâu nó trả tàu xó họ luôn nát cho lọ nên thế lại hai tiền mi tú từ giờ cũng mà trả tàu xó nó giờ cũng xó mua chỉ ư tôi trâu từ phía nhà bạn đó mỗi ứng số chờ là mà bữa ta đã luôn tụ tôi thấy ít số hai tiền cần nữa cả chỉ chủ giờ nữ chẳng chỉ chủ thế ai nữ chẳng ôi xem mua nó cái nữ tôi làm mà nó ở chỉ tu thế lại mua lô tờ tua thế lại sâu khủng cho cả là trẻ là ở châu nên chẳng tin là cũng cái là chuyện đó cụ thể và tới cái xe thì bây giờ sinh chi đó nên nông ta này cái chỉ sao chẳng chỉ sáng trái nữa mà mình chẳng chung ra plei nhắm bom mình vào mình cái